All right, Bonita Trinter, as we welcome you back to the O'Connell Center. Kalia Warner and Bernie Gunther with you. 3 meter now for the women, 1 meter for the men. And so you see the opening dive here, really some unbelievable talent taking part here in this tri-meet this weekend.
It's a deep, deep field, that's for sure.
Brooke Madden dove very well, fell earlier to Jessica Prado in the 1 meter competition.
Yeah, Brooke's a very impressive diver and she works very hard. Beautiful dive for Brooke. Up and over the board and a beautiful entry.
What are you looking for as a diver early on? Obviously this is, for many of these athletes, their first dual meet of the season.
It's tough. You're in a position where you've just started getting back into it after you don't have a summer break, but training is not as intense. So they're getting back into it, putting everything together. So the expectations aren't too high, but when you're up against two teams like Texas and Indiana, then the pressure is definitely on. You want to step up and you want to be able to perform at the level that they are at.
Samantha Brumberg, you need to think about, obviously, the Olympians who we're going to see later tonight taking part in the swimming competition, but the same thing is true on the divers and the diving competition as well.
Absolutely. Jessica Parado, she's in the 3 meter event right now. She's a beautiful diver. But the thing with that is it's definitely intimidating, but at the same time it's motivating.
From the University of Texas,
Maya Krager with the diving. And Sophia Razzi, she dove very well as well earlier today.
Yeah, there's definitely a steep field here. Beautiful dive.
Just love that entry.
That entry is exactly what the judges are looking for.
2.4 degree of difficulty, 7s and 1 7.5 the award. Now it's Emma Whitner. Diving has been really a strong suit for the University of Florida.
Absolutely. Getting better and better every year. Nice dive for Emma. Emma is typically a platform diver, but that just means that the skills that she builds up on the 10 meter she can carry over to the springboard, and you can see that.
6.5, 6.5, 6. And now Megan O'Brien.
A very powerful diver. And you'll see that in this hurdle here. Beautiful dive.
It's a deep field here. You got 13 divers on the women's side competing.
Exactly. It's not what they're used to in a dual meet. That's for sure. But I suppose that's what comes along. It's what happens when you bring in a third team.
O'Brien 3, 6.5. So now this is Jessica Prado, and as good as she was on the 1 meter, the higher she goes, the better she becomes.
That's typically how it is for her. Yes, she was a 2016 Rio Olympian, and she is phenomenal on 10 meter. That was a very beautiful dive. Slight over rotation, but very, very minimal.
Inward 2.5 somersault. Her first dive, 2.7 degree of difficulty. 7.5 and a 7. Brianna now. Got some young athletes getting their first opportunities to really compete.
Exactly. It's a good meet to do it at too. Lots of talent here. Slight over rotation on that, but I think she'll be happy.
A 4.5, a 5.5, and a 6. Sometimes the judges don't get it all together.
They're all over the place, aren't they?
It's got to be frustrating for you guys as a former diver.
It's one of the most frustrating aspects of diving. It's not a matter of just hitting the dive and doing it properly, but it's a matter of what the judges actually think about that dive. And they start judging you from the moment you step on the board.
Taylor Carter from Indiana here in the first round with a 105B. And then after it being all over the place, everybody sees the same thing, a 6.5.
Up next, from UF, attempted a 105B, Taya Sakakis.
Taya,
Here's
our
Taya.
Canadian diver.
Of course, she came in, brought some international flavor as well from
Yeah,
Australia.
That's right, that's right.
How important is the diversity and having student athletes from all over the world?
I think it's so important. I mean, diversity in any situation is important, but especially in athletics, because you have an opportunity to kind of see how other people do things, and then you can adopt what they do if you like it, and it's just a chance for everyone to just grow together and be, you know, completely open-minded.
7, 6.5, 7 for Taya.
Great
Now
dive.
Allison Gibson from Texas.
That was a great dive, such a powerful hurdle, and then a great entry to finish it off. That's all you can ask for.
How much of these divers are looking at maybe trying something a little bit new because it's so early in the season, or is it too early to?
Honestly, it depends on the coach, and it depends on your ability. So it's just what someone else on the team does is not what you'll do. It's a very individual sport. We try and compete as a team, but your dives are done individually and based off your skill level. So it really depends on what your coach, wants you to do.
Here's Higgins' dive, 5.6 and a 4.5. And now Jacob Cornish, as we move now to the 1 meter.
With a front 2.5 pike. Slightly shorter vertical on that one, but not an awful dive at all.
6.5, 6.5, 6.
From the University of Texas, attempting the 405C, Reed Merritt.
Inward 2.5 tuck. This is a tough dive. He did a great job. His legs were slightly bent as he went into the water.
Three 5.5s for Reed Merritt. And now Andrew Capobianco from Indiana. The Hoosiers historically have always had really phenomenal diving.
Oh, absolutely. Slight over-rotation, but a great dive. Yeah, they have a very, very strong team, and I don't see that changing anytime soon.
7, 7.5, 7.
Extreme team, attempting the 405C, Grayson Campbell.
That's what's so great to see. The Longhorns, the Gators, the Hoosiers all get together early on just to maybe
Just to get a
find out
feel.
where you are.
Exactly. No, it's definitely a strange mix-up because we're so used to competing against SEC teams early on in the season. So it's definitely strange to, have some people from other places, but it's a good thing because that's what you're up against later in the season.
Campbell with a nice dive.
Nice dives, a little bit far out from the board, but a great entry.
6.5s and a 6. It's amazing the technology, obviously, you guys have been using for a while. You see they're checking out their dive moments after.
It's so helpful. It's like a second coach. Your coach tells you what you did wrong and what you need to improve on, and then you get to actually go over and see it. Such a helpful tool. When I was younger and I first started diving, we didn't have anything like that. There were no televisions.
6.5, 7, 7 for Maury Golden. How do you feel that this replay technology, if you will, has helped you out?
Well, like I said, it is like a second coach. So, when coach says something, it's enough to understand what it's like in your head, but it helps you so much more when you can physically see what you're doing. So it is the most helpful thing. I think it's absolutely necessary. I couldn't imagine diving without it.
Alex Farrell with his opening dive, a 7 and 2 6.5s. Seema Scotty Nod your head. You like where he was at there?
Yeah, not a bad dive at all. It was a little bit far away from the board. But the entry, he served himself and consistent judging. 6.
Jordan Wendell from Texas, he was very impressive in the 3-meter competition.
He is an excellent diver. I'm very excited to see how his diving career in college plays out. Beautiful dive. He's so strong and shows so much composure on the end of the board. Beautiful entry.
And look at those scores, a 9, an 8, and an 8. Guess the only downside for him is that it carried only a very lower 2 degree of difficulty, so
Yeah.
not quite rewarded score-wise.
Exactly. Dalton will be very happy with that dive. Great entry, great height.
Robert Goss, 7.67. How important is it for you guys as divers? Would you rather see the 9s and the 8s with a lower degree of difficulty, or maybe a lower number with a much higher degree of difficulty?
Diving is a little bit of a gamble sometimes. Obviously, when it comes to simple dives, you want to be getting the best scores that you possibly can. But then when it comes to harder dives, that's where the risk is, because if you get a 9, then you're ahead of the competition. If you don't, it doesn't matter as much, but then sometimes you get a bit too complacent. You think, well, I've got hard dives, I can just get 6s and I'll be fine. But you want to be better than that. So it doesn't really matter, but if you want to be the best, then you want to be getting the best scores on the hardest dives.
Bonita has to begin round 2.
Slightly slow in the air on that one.
For Florida, attempting a 107C, Brooke Madden.
Brooke Madden. Where do you feel like she's best? Obviously competed well on the 1-meter.
I think she's great on 1 meter. I think, from what I can tell from last season, I think 1 meter is definitely her strong suit, but that's not to say that she's not phenomenal on 3 meter, because she is, and she's been working really hard on some new dives at the moment. She has beautiful entries and a great line.
105B, 2.4 degree of difficulty for Brooke Madden. 7, 6.5, 7. And isn't that what makes diving so unique, is you have really between the 10-meter all the way down to the 1-meter or springboard, I mean, it's really completely different.
Absolutely. Comparing a 1 meter springboard to a 10 meter platform, it's not even, you can't compare it. There are no similarities, you know, from your aerial awareness to how you feel when you're entering the water. They're two completely different things.
Bromberg, 5.5, 5.5, 6. Now this is Indiana's Maya Krager.
Freshman diver.
Beautiful.
Stunning entry. Very, very nice. She has a beautiful toe point.
7, 7, 7.5.
Well deserved. Sophia Rousey with a front 3.5 tuck. That was very impressive. She looked like she was a little out of balance on the beginning of the hurdle, but she pulled it together and got it in nicely.
The other big positive of this tri-meet, if you will, is the fact that both these teams averaging 11, 13 divers, so it's really giving some young athletes that in a dual meet maybe don't get a chance to dive and show their coach, they can get on the board right away.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's the more divers you have, the harder it can be, because the longer you have to wait in between each dive. But it's a good thing to practice now, because, you know, come SECs and NCAAs, you can be waiting 45 minutes in between a dive.
Emma Widner, 5, 4.5, 4.5.
From UT, attempting a 305B, Megan O'Brien.
Yeah, this is obviously has a much different pace than SEC, Big 10, Big 12 final evening.
Yep.
We're slowing things down with replays. There's only 8 individuals.
It's slower, it's more drawn out. Beautiful dive, slightly short there.
Megan O'Brien 7-7, 6.5 on her 305B. And now here's Jessica Parado. You mentioned an Olympian for Team USA in Rio 2016. That's why.
Beautiful. That is why.
And as we talked about, the higher up she goes, the better she gets.
Definitely. Her skills, the skills she has from the 10 meter, she can easily carry over to the springboard. So while it's definitely not her strong suit, you can hardly tell because she is just that good.
She and Indiana diver Amy Kozad combined.
What a team.
It's working. Oh, no, it's fine, yeah.
Back 2.5 tuck for Brianna Falegi. Slightly short on the entry, and you will see that in the scores. 4-4, 3.5.
Next up from Indiana, attempting a 201B, Taylor Carter.
Taylor Carter up next with a back dive pike. This is a much easier dive compared to the rest of the competition, but it just means that she probably hasn't either learned or hasn't perfected the harder dive yet, so she's gone with the easier one. And it was a beautiful dive.
Carries a 1.8 degree of difficulty. See if she gets rewarded with her scores 6.5, 7, 6.5.
She would probably have been hoping for higher, but with a 6.5 and a 7, you can't complain.
Next up for the Gators, attempting a 107C,
Taya Siskakis with a front 3.5 tuck. I was talking to her before the event. I know she is a little bit worried about this dive in particular, but I have seen her do it beautifully. She just needed a little bit more power on that takeoff and to get into a tighter ball in the air. Four and a half, 4, 4.
For the Longhorns, attempting a 105B, Allison Gibson.
Allison Gibson up next from Texas.
She's doing a front 2.5 pike. She has an extremely powerful hurdle, and she's so small, which is strange. She just flies through the air, and she came out very early on that, but she pulled it around nicely.
6.5, 7, 7. Now here's Higgins from IU. Imagine every day getting a chance to dive along with an Olympian like Jessica Parado. You'd think you'd learn so much.
Oh, absolutely. Great dive, too. I think it would be very motivating. Absolutely. Like I said, can definitely be intimidating, but in the long run, getting to train alongside people that you idol is nothing but beneficial.
Now back to the men's competition. Here in round number 2, Jacob Cornish from Texas will begin. Jordan Wendell with a 65. Leader after round 1, Grayson Campbell second. Andrew Capobianco third.
Slightly short on that one. He just needed to hold on a little bit longer.
4, 4, 4.
For UT, attempting a 105B, Reed Merritt.
Second up is Texas's Reed Merritt.
He was slightly back on the end of the board, which generally sets you up for a little bit of disaster, but he pulled it together and got it in really nicely.
7, 7, 6.5.
I think he'll be happy with that.
Capobianco, one of the top 3 competitors headed into the second round. Of course, that's the challenge, I guess, if you will, with diving, is that so much can happen over 6 rounds.
Absolutely, and this is a huge dive for him. So, well, with height like that, That was a great effort. Slightly short on the entry, but he was so high in the air, and that's a very tough dive.
6.5, 6, 7.
For the Longhorns, attempt at 5.335D, Grayson Campbell.
Grayson Campbell. 53.35D. Difficult dive with a 3.0 degree of difficulty.
Yeah, reverse twist. It's a tough one. He cut off his height a little bit as he extended off the board, but he got it around, and I think he'll be happy with the scores that he gets. Yeah,
A 6.5 of 7 and a 6.
Yeah, 7 in there.
What's the mindset for the divers? Obviously, everybody, you love to get 9s and 10s, but what is really truly realistic of what you want to make sure you hit this or better every time?
It's definitely different for every athlete, but I think if you see 6s, oh no, he's slipped and he's missed his leg. Unfortunately, that will be a failed dive. Yeah, it's definitely different for every athlete, but I think if you see a 6, you kind of you're content with that because it's not awful, but as an athlete, you want to be better than that. So once you see a 7, you know you're on the right track, and then if you see an 8 or a 9 or a 10, which doesn't happen often, but if you do see that, then you know that you're doing really well. So you always aim for above. I think most divers would always aim for 7s or more. But then again, it does depend what level you're at.
Alex Farrow comes up short on that dive.
Yeah, just a little bit. It's a shame about the previous diver. He just let go of his leg.
Attempting a 2.03B for Indiana, Seamus Scotty.
Seamus Scotty.
It's a great dive. He left it a little bit too late on the come out and it washed over slightly. But I don't think he'll be too heavily penalised. As you can see, 6, 6.5, 6.
For Indiana, attempting a 5.134D, Cody Cole.
Looks like it should be Jordan Wendell, who was the leader after the first round.
Correction, Jordan Wendell from the University of Texas.
205C. A lot of divers to keep up with.
Absolutely. This is a big dive for Jordan too. A back 2.5 tuck with a 3.0 degree of difficulty. He'll be looking to get some serious height on this dive and drop it in nicely. And he did just that. It was not as high as he would have hoped, but because he is so powerful and he's not too long, he can get it in. 6.5, 6.5, 7.
Robert Goss with a 205C 3.0.
So this is the same dive that we just saw. Little bit too much power and left it a little bit late on the come out. As you can see by the 4.5, the 4 and 3.5.
What are you guys thinking about on the come out to make sure that it's precise?
It's hard because you have about 2 seconds to complete the dive, but a lot can actually go on in your head in that point. But that's what we practice when we're in training. We're looking at what we're doing. So when you take off, you spot. So you see the water or you see the board. So all that he would have been looking to see on that dive was the water and then the board. And once you see it, you kick at it. But you don't get it right every time. It's like any sport.
6, 6, 5.5. Bonita, as we begin round number 3.
That was a beautiful entry. It looked a little bit close from this angle, but that could just be from where I'm sitting. But I don't think she'll be penalised for that. She was a little bit. 5, 5.5, 4.5.
Brooke Madden now.
This is a new dive for her. She's been working on for the past couple of weeks. A full out. She lost some power in her hurdle. I think she would have panicked a little bit at that point, so she held on longer than she needed to.
For
5.5, 5.5, and a 4. Bromberg now. See how good the scores are for Jessica Parado, that she hasn't even dove here in round 3, and yet she's still among the leaders.
Still up there. Exactly. Beautiful dive. She gets into the tightest little ball in the air, and it's exactly what you need. Rewarded fairly. 7.5, 7.7.
Maya Krager now. A 403B.
Beautiful dive. That is one of the easier dives in this competition, so I think she will be hoping for some high scores on this one. 6, 7, 6.5. I think she would have wanted a little bit higher.
Rozzy from Texas. She's dazzled so far today.
She's doing an in-between half tuck right now. That was a very beautiful dive. She pikes out, which is really nice, but she left it a little bit late and over-rotated slightly.
Attempting a 205 seat for the University of Florida, Emma Whitner.
Emma Whitner.
Back 2.5 tuck with a 2.8 degree of difficulty. She just came out way too early on that one.
Four and a half, and a 4.
Next, for the University of Texas, attempting a 5.152B, Megan O'Brien.
And now here's Megan O'Brien.
Doing a full out with a 3.0 degree of difficulty. Such a powerful diver. A great dive. She'll be happy with that.
There's a fabulous entry there
Yeah.
for O'Brien. 6.5, 7, 6.5. And here's Indiana's Olympian Jessica Parado.
With the same dive that we just saw. She lost some balance on the end of the board there, but she kept it together and got it in nicely. Just a tiny leg separation in the middle of the air.
5.5, 6.5, 6. How did you like following somebody that was doing the same dive you did? I guess good if you feel like you were better.
Exactly. I think it's a mental thing. Very mental, which obviously diving is. But I think it depends on how you look at it. For me, it was a positive thing. It was a chance for me to say, well, I'm going to do it better than you. Unfortunately, Bree just came out way too early on that reverse 2.5 tuck. Yeah, for me, it was a chance to say, well, I'm going to do this dive better than you. So I used it as fuel. But for a lot of people, it can be very intimidating. And that you have these situations, they come about in diving a lot, all the time. It is a huge mental sport.
Here is Taylor Carter.
A lot of the time, your body knows what to do. It's just a matter of whether you can execute it based on how you're thinking at that time.
Should be a simple dive, and it is.
Very simple dive. That's a reverse dive pike. She over-rotated on that one, so she will be penalized.
I'm sure you want to be real consistent with those more simple, fundamental dives.
Definitely.
Carter 5, 6, 5.5, but she wished obviously the marks were higher.
Yes.
Attempting a 305 seat for the University of Florida, Taya Zeskakis.
Here's Taya.
With a reverse 2.5 tuck. She is usually very good at this dive. She's just going to want to keep her composure at this point. Very good dive for Taya. I think she'll be happy with that. 6.5, 5.5, 5.5. She would have wanted higher scores. But consistency is key in diving.
Allison Gibson. 3.1 degree of difficulty on this dive.
This is a big dive. This is a front 3.5 pike. She completely lost her balance on the end of the board. Her feet were over the edge, so that definitely set her up for a bit of a mess, and she didn't have enough room to do it. As you can see, 2, 3, 2. At that point, that's all the judges. That's the highest score they can give you.
Kelly Higgins.
Very short on that one. That's another easy dive as a back dive pike, so she definitely would have wanted to do that. She would have wanted to enter the water in a straight line, and she's left it short.
Jacob Cornish now.
Back to the 1 meter. A reverse 2.5 tuck.
Jordan Wendell got a comfortable lead up 7 points, but that can get eroded pretty quickly.
Oh, absolutely. Slide over rotation on that one. 5, 5, 5.5. Yeah, that's the thing with diving. It's not over until the last person dives. Absolutely anything can happen.
Grayson Campbell from Texas behind Jordan Wendell, but the Longhorns 1-2. Let's begin the third of 6 rounds.
That was a beautiful dive. A simple dive, but like we've been talking about, when you do a simple dive, you want it to be beautiful. 7, 6.5, 7.
Andrew Capobianco for Indiana.
Wow, beautiful twist. Phenomenal entry. He's going to be rewarded for that one. 8.5, 8.5, 8.5 across the board. Well deserved.
Well, Grayson Campbell was second. Could do something about it right here with his third round dive at 205C.
Yeah, we have a back 2.5 tuck with a 3.0 degree difficulty. No, that... I think the board is wrong right now because that was a back 1.5 pike. So they either haven't updated the board or it was a wrong dive.
They want to make sure that everybody's on the same page, of course.
Yep. I can see them making some adjustments. Okay, so they've given him the scores. The board is just wrong. So that was a back 1.5 pike.
For the losers, Corey Gold to attempt a 203B.
Well, you talk about how mental diving is, as you see Maury Gold here on the 1 meter, and I would think that you look at the board, it shows you what your dive is. If it's wrong, it probably still takes a little bit for you to actually push it out of the way and say, hey, we got to push through it.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, the good thing is you can change your dive on the board if something is wrong, but you don't really want to be in that point, because when you are, you start stressing about something that you shouldn't have had to even think about.
Right.
So you don't want to put yourself in that position. You just want to get it right before you get on the board.
Alex Farrow from Florida.
With an inward 2.5 tuck.
Is there a certain way that you like to set up your dive chart as far as best dive early on, best dive late?
It's completely up to the individual. Everyone has a different tactic. Some people do the thing that they've done since they were little. Some people like to change it up as they get older. Some people do it based on best dive to worst dive, or some of them like to do their worst dives first to get them out of the way. It just, honestly, it depends on the person and what they think is going to help them compete the best.
Alex Farrow came up short again and gets 2 5s and a 4. Just couldn't get a clean entry.
definitely tough on 1 meter, especially with the men because they do such hard dives in such a short amount of space. Powerful hurdle, and that's a simple dive, so he would have not wanted to be as short as he was. 5.5, 5, 4.5.
Here's our leader, Jordan Windle of Texas.
Doing a reverse 2.5 tuck. So he dropped his arms on the end of that hurdle, which normally isn't what you're supposed to do. And a lot of people would panic in that moment, but he kept it together and he got it in beautifully.
And wow.
And the judges didn't penalize him for it.
8.5, and a 7.5. Should they have penalized?
No, you don't have to penalize for things like that. If the diver is in a position where they can fix the problem in the air, then it doesn't matter.
Okay. Robert Goss from Florida.
A solid effort from Dalton. He just came out too early on that one.
For Indiana, to attempt a 3:03B, Clark Carter.
Clark Carter, our final participant on the men's side here in round 3.
Doing a reverse 1.5 pike. Another simple dive. He flexed his feet a little bit on the entry, and it was slightly too far out, but I don't think he'll be completely unimpressed with his scores. Yep, 6, 5.5, 6.
Bonnie Churchill to attempt a 2:03B.
All right, Bonnie begins our 4th of 6 rounds.
Back 1.5 pike. Came out a little bit too late on that one and washed it over.
2.2 degree of difficulty on that dive that earns 3, a 4, and a 4.5.
It is a simple dive.
Brooke Madden now. Well, Brian Parado and Bromberg, those are our leaders. Texas, Indiana, Texas.
Beautiful dive from Brooke. Slightly short on that entry, but I think she will be happy with the takeoff. 6, 6.5, 5.5.
Attempting a 2:05B for the Longhorns, Samantha Bromberg.
Bromberg has this competition well within sight. If she can finish strong here with her final 3.
Her back 2.5 pike right now. She just came out too early. Had she have held on slightly longer, she would have hit that one. 3.5, 4, 3.5.
Attempting a 2:03B for Indiana, Maya Krager.
Maya Krager now from Indiana.
Maya's doing a back 2.5 pike. She just lost all of her rotation in the middle of the air, and then when she came out, it just kind of fell instead of floating around.
Up next for Texas, Sophia Rousey, attempting a 2:05C.
Sophia Rousey.
Doing a back 2.5 tuck. Beautiful. I think she'll be happy with that. Kicked nice and tight.
6.5, 6.5, 6.
Attempting a 2:05C for the University of Florida, Emma Whitney.
Rousey moves into the lead, but still plenty of competition to come here in the 4th round.
Emma Whitner right now with a reverse 2.5 tuck. A lot of the time, the longer that a diver stands there thinking, the more nervous they are about what they're about to do. She pulled it off nicely. It was short. She came out too early, but I don't think she'll be too disappointed.
That gets a 2.8 degree of difficulty, 5, a 5.5, and 1-4.
For the University of Texas to attempting 205B, Megan O'Brien.
Megan O'Brien with a back 2.5 pike. I absolutely love watching the power that she gets from the board. She's so strong. Beautiful dive. I'm certain the judges will reward that highly.
And a 7 and 2 7.5s.
Yeah, she'll be happy with that.
Here's the Olympian Jessica Parado.
Back 2.5 pike for Jess. She over-rotated on that one.
Five and a half, 6.5, 6. And Prado right now trailing Megan O'Brien by about 20 points or so.
Yep. That's quite a good lead for Megan. Brianna Falegi right now with an inward 2.5 tuck.
Oof.
It was just too low, that one. Not enough power from the beginning.
Three and a half, 4-3.
For Indiana, attempting a 205C, Taylor Carter.
The best thing to do in a position where you don't get the scores that you want is to just forget about it and move on, because every dive is so different. Just because you get a 3 on one dive certainly doesn't mean you'll get 3 on the next one. Back 2.5 tuck for Taylor Carter. She's left that one a little bit too late, so it over-rotated.
For the Florida Gators,
4.5, 5.5.
Taya Siskakis, attempting a 5-3-3-3-D.
Here's Taya.
With her reverse twist. She'll be happy with that. Beautiful dive. Seven, 6.5, 6.5.
For the Longhorns, attempting a 305B, Allison Gibson.
Allison Gibson, followed by Higgins. Megan O'Brien still in the lead, 242 points. Parado's second. And Sophia Razzi third with 210.
Big dive Allison right now. Reverse 2.5 pike. No, the board must be wrong again, because that was a reverse dive pike and it was very beautiful. So she'll get good scores for that, but the board is definitely wrong.
It's a very clean entry there on that last dive.
Seven, 7.5, 7.5.
Our final diver in round number 4 is Higgins from Indiana.
With a reverse dive pike, so exactly what we just saw. Left that one slightly short.
And not nearly the scores, a 5.5 and 2 6s. And now Jacob Cornish, as we begin round 4, Jordan Windle, 197 points, ahead of Grayson Campbell. And Capobianco from Indiana, basically the same look in the top 3 here as we begin the 4th round with Jacob Cornish.
That was a good reverse twist. Slightly short on that entry.
Seven, 6.5, 6.
For the University of Texas, entering 303B, Reed Merritt.
Next up is Reed Merritt.
Doing a reverse 1.5 pike. And a beautiful one at that.
Reed Merritt, 7.77. And Andrew Capobianco, who began this round in third, has a chance to try to move up.
He's doing a fairly simple dive. It's a back 1.5 pike. So we'll be looking to put it down really nicely. And he came out too early. Left it a bit short, unfortunately.
Capobianco, 4.5, 4.5, 4.5.
UT Grayson Campbell, holds at a 305C.
Grayson Campbell now.
Reverse 2.5 tuck.
It's amazing the height on that board.
Yeah, absolutely. He definitely works with the board, but he left that one too short.
Campbell was in second trying to catch
Attempting a 305C.
the Longhorn, his teammate, Maury Gold now. Campbell currently leading 225.5 points. But still lots of diving remaining here in round 4.
Reverse 2.5 tuck right now. That was a beautiful top. He just came out too late and washed it over.
A 6, a 5.5, and a 6.
Attempting a 203B.
Alex Farrow.
He's doing a back 1.5 pike. Beautiful dive for Alex. I think he'll be really happy with that one. 7, 6.5, 6.
For Indiana, attempting a 403B. Seamus Scotty.
Seamus Scotty. Grayson Campbell, Capobianco remain the first two.
Him at 1.5 pike. He set that one a little bit back, so it was slightly far away from the board.
To attempt a 107C.
5.5, a 6, and a 5.5. Here's your leader, Jordan Windle.
Doing a 107C, big dive for Jordan. He's going to want to keep his composure right now. And drop it in just like that.
Looks smooth.
Very smooth. Tiny, tiny over rotation, but I don't think the judges will penalize him too much, as you can see.
He
7.5.
came in with 197 points. Now he's got 264. And he is in first place by almost 40 points. He's extended his lead here in round 4.
Inward 1.5 pike. Beautiful dive.
You love to have almost a full dive lead when you head towards those final 2 rounds, right?
Yeah, it's amazing. It's amazing when that happens.
5333D for Indiana, Clark Carter.
When you're in that position, I guess the thing to do is just not get too far ahead of yourself and just focus on what you're doing. Because, I mean, a lot of divers actually don't look at the scoreboard. I personally did. It helped me. It was like playing a game almost. But for a lot of people, it just throws them off. So I imagine Jordan probably doesn't look at the board.
Clark Carter just didn't look real tight on that dive.
Yeah, he was short on that entry. 4s across the board.
All right, that concludes round 4. And now back to 3 meter. Florida's Trinter with a 303C, 3.0 degree of difficulty to start things off in this round. Just didn't look right there.
She kind of fell off the board as opposed to jumping up and really riding the board. But that entry was not bad at all. 5.54.
305C for the University of Florida, Brooke Madden.
Brooke Madden.
With a 305C.
Megan O'Brien leading. Parado second. And Rousey third. And 30 points the difference between first and third, 20 points between first and second.
And that was a great reverse 2.5 tuck for Brooke. 6.5, 7, 6.5. Consistent scores.
5C for the University of Texas, Samantha Bromberg.
Samantha Bromberg now.
Reverse 2.5 tuck. Beautiful dive. She has stunning lines. Just dropped it right in. Sevens across the board.
Maya Krager.
Well, that was a beautiful reverse 1.5 tuck. A simple dive, but she'll be happy with the score she gets for that.
7, 7, 6 and 1/2.
Sophia Rousey.
Too much power in that reverse 2.5 tuck. Unfortunately, she must have lost her spot and she's kicked out too late.
For the Gators, it's going to be 5-1-3-4D. Emma Whitner.
Emma Widner. Brooke Madden right now currently your leader. But Parado, O'Brien still to come.
I think she'll be happy with that. A solid entry.
6.5, 6 and a 5.
For the Longhorns, it's going to be 2.
Here is your leader, Megan O'Brien, with 2 dives remaining.
In with 2.5 pike. I do believe she's the only one competing this dive today.
Attempting a 405B for Megan O'Brien.
A little extra time for O'Brien to think about it.
She'll be looking to go up and over the board here. She did just that. A beautiful dive. The judges are going to like that, I think.
6, 6.5, 6.5. Does that
Solid.
open the door for Parado?
Solid scores. It does, but at the same time, getting a 6 on a difficult dive can still keep you in the competition. It can keep you where you are. If you get any lower than that, then definitely opens the door.
Here is Parado, speaking of the Olympian.
A beautiful dive, but it is a reverse dive pike with a 1.9 degree of difficulty, so I don't think... No, she won't get in front of Megan at this stage.
7.5, 8, 8. 299 points for O'Brien, 263 points for Jessica Parado. And here's Bree from the University of Florida.
With a back twist. Slightly turned to the side as she entered the water, so the judges might penalize her for that, unfortunately. 5, 4.5, 4.
Taylor Carter to attempting 403B from Indiana.
Indiana's Taylor Carter with a 403B, 2.1 degree of difficulty.
Yes, an inward 1.5 pike. Another simple dive. At this point of the season, it's clear that a lot of the divers are just doing their simple dives at the moment. Great dive, nice entry.
Carter with 7s across the board.
Attempting 205C for the University of Florida, Taya Ziskakis.
Here's Taya.
Back 1.5 tuck for Taya.
A little bit of a whoa there.
I saw a little smile on her face.
No deduction because she didn't start, right?
Yeah, no, they're not going to penalise her for that. Slightly short on that one. Not enough power from the board.
5.5, 4 and 1/2. Allison Gibson with a 205B, 3.0 degree of difficulty.
Doesn't quite get as high as she needs to for that dive, but she still landed on her head. 5, 5.5, 4.5.
Attempting 403B for Indiana.
Indiana's Callie Higgins. Brooke Madden is going to likely be in third place headed into the final round from Florida.
Callie's doing an inward 1.5 pike right now. Another simple dive. Slightly too far back on that one. She cut off her jump in the beginning. 5, 5.5, 5.
For the Longhorns, attempting a 405C, Jacob Cornish.
Back down to the 1 meter.
Jacob Cornish.
Doing an inward 2.5 tuck. He cut off his jump a little bit and sat it back, but that entry was cleaner than what I think he had expected.
Jordan Wendell first. Cornish jumps into second place, but it's only because Grayson Campbell hasn't dove yet.
That's right.
Here's Reed Merritt.
A beautiful reverse twist. Sevens across the board, well deserved.
For Indiana, attempting a 305C.
Andrew Capobianco. He has consistently been among the top 3 today.
He's doing a reverse 2.5 tuck. Great start. He just came out too early with that. And there wasn't enough room left for him to finish the dive off.
For Texas, attempting a 107C, Grayson Campbell.
Now Grayson Campbell, he has a chance to try to narrow that lead with Jordan Wendell with only 2 dives remaining. This is an important one.
Big dive for him. A front 3.5.
And wow, Grayson Campbell is scratched.
Oh, I wonder what happened.
So that will take him out of an opportunity to finish in the top of this competition, obviously.
Yeah. A beautiful inward 2.5 tuck from Maury Gould.
And Maury Gould, his scores still waiting. 7, 7.5, 7 and 1/2.
Well deserved.
Attempting a 303B for the University of Florida, Alex Farrell.
Here's the Gator. Who do you look forward to most
Correction, Farrell attempting 305C.
from this men's side and really doing some big things for the University of Florida this year?
I love watching everyone. I don't think it's hard to compare them because they all work so hard. But I think on the women's side, I'm very excited to see where Brooke Madden ends up at the end of the semester, just because last season she was so strong. And I think she did a lot better than she had planned on. The gated divers are very happy with that one from Alex. Reverse 2.5 tuck. It says reverse 1.5 pike on the board, but I think they would have changed it.
4, 4, 4.5.
Yeah, I'm very excited to see what happens. I'm excited to see the seniors, Dalton Goss and Brianna Foleggi. I'm excited to see what happens with them. Senior year is always an exciting one, so I hope they all do well.
Here is Scotty, 51.32D.
A simple dive, and he did it well.
For the Longhorns, Jordan Wendell, 254.
And your leader, Jordan Wendell, who's in the lead before he even takes this dive. We talked about having almost a full dive lead. There you have it.
He's definitely in a very comfortable position. He's still going to want to do the best dive that he possibly can. And he certainly did a good job with his inward 2.5 tuck. He sat it a little far back, but I think the judges will give him some good scores. Yeah, 7s across the board.
For the University of Indiana, 403.
Robert Goss.
Correction, for the University of Florida, attempting a 405C. Dalton Goss.
Here's the senior you talked about a moment ago.
Yeah, he's doing an inward 2.5 tuck right now.
It goes so fast, doesn't it?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely, in the blink of an eye. He didn't jump high enough on that one. Didn't get enough power from the board, so he came out a little bit early and it was too short.
I'm sure some days CC4 is 4 and a 3.5. Training doesn't seem like it's going to ever end, and then you blink and it's all done.
Oh, it's unbelievable how fast it goes. Some aspects of it feel like it happened just yesterday, and then there are other aspects that feel like they happened a lifetime ago. There are definitely a lot of things that I miss about it as well.
Clark Carter, 2.4 degree of difficulty, 6, 6.5, 6. You get to look at your name when you come into the venue every day. Record holder, 1 meter, 3 meter platform. It's going to be pretty impressive.
Absolutely. I love seeing that. I mean, I had 3 goals when I came here, and one of them was to break the records. The other one was to get my name on the wall, which I didn't get it on this wall, but I got it on a wall out there.
There you go.
And I can't even remember my 3rd goal. It was that long ago, but I ended up accomplishing all of them. So that was a big deal for me to do that.
Yeah, you and Robin Grimes, the only 2 in this new millennia that are on the board.
Yeah. Yeah, that was a big thing for me.
Brooke Madden.
Beautiful
I know
dive
you're
for
looking
Brooke.
forward to seeing what she can do this year. 7, 6.5, 6.5. It's the final round of diving.
I just remember what my other goal was. It was to win SECs, and I did it.
Nice.
That was the best. I was actually talking about that with someone yesterday. If I could relive one moment in my life, it would be SECs. Absolutely. It was the most nerve-wracking moment of my life, but it was well worth it.
Well, for all these teams at all their respective conference, whether it's the SEC, the Big Ten, or the Big 12, these are some huge moments for any of the athletes that can walk home as a conference champion.
Absolutely.
And you got the huge crowd, all the faithful, all the parents. You got the cameras turned towards you with the network television.
I think that's the scariest thing for freshmen especially. I remember my first SECs and having the camera on me and having so many people in the crowd. It was just terrifying, and my nerves let me down a little bit, I think. But every year I just got better and better, and by my senior year, I mean, it didn't even bother me anymore. I just worked with my nerves. And I also had a coach, Dale Schultz.
Yep.
He just believed in me so much, so I have a lot to thank him for in that regard.
Sophia Razzi from Texas. Brooke Madden, currently your leader, followed by Samantha Brumberg and Megan O'Brien third.
Great dive. I think she'll be happy with that one. A slight twist on the end.
Came into the dive with 240 points. She's got 291 now. Doesn't move her into the top three.
Brooke is sitting in first place at the moment. Still a couple divers to go.
Emma Whitner from the University of Florida. She's currently 9th headed into this round, trying to finish strong. And she does.
Beautiful dive for Emma. She's going to be very happy with that. 7, 6.5, 7.5.
Here's Megan O'Brien.
5, 2, 3, 5, deep.
Trying to rekindle the lead, and all she's got to do is score 12 points. It's within range.
I think she can do it. Beautiful. Slightly short on that entry.
That's going to take more than 12 to pass Parado, but she's going to get a lot more than 12. 5.5, 6.5, 6. And she's got 350 points. Here's Parado.
2.8 degree of difficulty for this back twist. And with that, she will get ahead, most likely. She will get ahead of Brooke Madden of Florida. 7.5, and yes, 323.85.
So Bryant is the leader. Parado currently second, and Brooke Madden third, with Bree now diving.
A front 2.5 pike. Slightly short of vertical. Five and a half, 5.5.
Attempting 8, 5, 2, 3, 3, deep from Indiana, Taylor Carter.
Taylor Carter with 198 points, trying to finish strong here.
Okay, back 1.5. 1.5 here. 2.4 degree of difficulty. Again, slightly short of vertical.
Five and a half, 6.5, 6. Gator Tea Siskis. She'd like to go up another 5 meters. I guess another 7 technically.
Yes, Taya is incredible on 10 meter platform. She definitely gets better the higher she goes. She doesn't like 1 meter at all. She's doing an inward 2.5 tuck right now. Beautiful dive for Taya.
There are parts of 1 meter that can maybe help out your platform as well, though.
Again, I think it depends on the person, but for the most part, the skills that you have on a 1 meter, you typically don't carry over to the platform, just because not only is one of them bouncy and one of them not at all, but the aerial awareness that you feel on the 1 meter is nothing like what you feel once you're higher. So I don't think you carry too many skills over, just basic skills like how to enter the water, but for the most part, no. And you do completely different dives.
Probably made you a little bit of an anomaly to be a record holder in 1 meter, 3 meter, and platform. It didn't matter where it was.
Yeah, that is true. It wasn't like that my whole life. I think I became better at springboard once I came here to Florida, especially my last 2 years in the program. But platform, believe it or not, I actually hated it. I couldn't stand getting up there, but I knew that that was what I had to do for the team. I didn't get to make that choice of saying, well, I'm not going to do that. So I just sucked it up and I went with it, and I am glad I did.
Higgins final dive, 4, 5.5, 5. O'Brien, Parado, and Brooke Madden. That's the top 3 on the 3 meter. You know, here's our final round of diving here.
Back to the 1 meter.
Jordan Windle, 329 points. He's got more than a full dive lead.
Slightly short on that back 2.5 tuck for Jacob Cornish.
So Cornish moves into second. Here's Reed Merritt. He's got a good chance of finishing second if he can hold on.
He's doing a back 1.5 twist.
52-33D.
He set that one a little far back, but he got it in really nicely.
Six, 6, and 6.5. Andrew Capobianco now.
With an inward 2.5 tuck. He's going to want to get up and over the board on this one. And he did exactly that. A beautiful dive.
Capobianco, 3.1 degree difficulty. That wasn't an easy dive. We'll see if it's enough. It is.
Beautiful.
7, 7, and a 7.5. He's into second place.
Amazing.
Well, Grayson Campbell getting skipped over. He was in second place.
The board is saying the wrong dive again.
Yeah, this is a different diver because Grayson Campbell was skipped. So that was Maury Gold.
Okay, so he did a back 1.5 twist. So the board is still stuck on Grayson Campbell.
It's not easy. Being the, got to be a coach. You got to be the scorer.
A little bit of everything.
5.5, 6.5, 6.5. But they need to credit that to Maury Gold and not Grayson Campbell. Let's see if...
Oh, it's because he scratched and they never fixed the board. So now we have Alex Farrow of Florida with a reverse twist. Left that one a little bit too short. Didn't get the full power from the board. But now the board is behind, so it still says Maury Gold.
There we
Alex
go.
Farrow.
Now Alex Farrow. He awaits his scores. He hopes that it's not the zeros that he just saw, which it's not.
No, definitely not. He would be mortified. So we're definitely experiencing some technical difficulties in regards to the scoreboard right now.
What do you think about the new board, though?
I love it. I wish I had that when I was on the team. It's amazing.
Beautiful picture.
I was wondering what they were going to do with that wall, though. I'm glad they chose to do that.
And it's interesting because the old board where the national championships once were is gone.
Yeah. No, I'm glad they did that. Perfect place for it.
Yeah. Here's Scotty. The natatorium has really become its own place in the reconstruction of the O'Connell Center.
Mm-hmm.
Wasn't ever walled off the way it was.
Yeah,
or it currently is, I should say now.
it's definitely different.
Here's the leader, Jordan Windle.
It's given it more of a natatorium feel. Beautiful entry. His twisting position is phenomenal. He's like a straight line in the middle of the air. 7.88, 7.5 rather.
He's going to finish with 390 points. 391 if you're doing rounding, and he's going to be your winner.
It's a big score.
Robert Goss.
Jordan's score 390 is certainly a big score for a tri-meet. A nice twist from Dalton. He just arched his back on that entry, and the judges will notice that.
Yeah, how big is the score? It actually would be a Florida record. Zach Wilcox, 369.
Yes, it's a big score, and I mean he is very deserving of it. He's a phenomenal diver. it would have been interesting to see him up against Indiana's two other Olympians who they didn't actually bring with them for this meet. But it would have been very interesting to see the three of them in action.
Clark Carter, 405C, 3.1. He gets 6s across the board. I think that's kind of what we talked about as you take a look at this dual meet. A great thing is some of the young athletes got a chance to participate, really show why they should be a part of the dual meet competition.
Exactly. I'm not sure why they didn't bring their two best guys, but it just would have been a really good thing for the younger divers to have them there.
Well, that's going to do it for the diving competition. We got about 3 hours before they come back to the O'Connell Center, and we get to watch some swimming.
Yep, 6 p.m.
Well, I enjoyed it. We'll do it again.
Sounds good.
Some great diving here inside the O'Connell Center. Some really good swimming happening in about 3 hours. Our entire SEC Network crew, Bernie Gunther saying so long from now from the Stephen C. O'Connell Center. We'll be back here at 6 o'clock tonight as the tri-meet begins tonight with a swimming competition.